Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to throw a bowl. Um, After I demonstrate, show people how to throw cylinders and get them up to speed on those, I usually move them onto bowls. Bowls can be a little bit easier to throw just because the direction that the clay moves as you're pulling it up is up and out, which is the way that the clay naturally wants to move. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of clay and we're going to get it stuck as close to the center of the wheel head as possible. Make sure it's good and stuck. Get the wheel head spinning. Get water on the clay. Then we're going to center the clay. Just wheel wedging the clay right now. And here's a cool little trick that I usually start showing people once they start centering the clay, and they're probably still having troubles with it even at this point when they're ready for bowls. But a lot of times people, when they're working with the clay, they'll make simple little mistakes, like they'll take their hands off the clay too fast or too slow. And this is just a little trick to demonstrate this. So when you're working with the clay, if you have your hands on the clay and it's spinning nice and evenly, and you just take your hands away from the clay real fast, then you're going to leave it off center and it's going to wobble around. However, if you do the same thing, clay spinning nice and even, and then you let off real gentle, it'll find its way back to center. And to further show this, you can take the clay way off center and watch how it's spinning. Let go. Or if you slowly let it come back, the clay wants to find its way back to center. Alright, gonna bring it back down. Now if you're having trouble centering the clay, one of the tricks is the direction of the pressure that you're applying to the clay. You always want to push towards center. And so essentially what you're going to be doing is, if I'm pushing with my left hand, I'm trying to push the clay off center. I'm trying to push it away from me. Okay? If you push in on the clay wants to rise up. If you push down, it's going to go back. Now if you're having issues with the clay kind of mushrooming underneath, that's because your hand is underneath like this. So what you do is you turn your hand over on top and you push down like this, so that you're pushing more on the corner and the clay's forcing down. You don't want to be pushing underneath. Alright, so once you have the clay centered, apply pressure down in the middle. Make sure your hands don't move around a whole bunch or it'll throw the clay off. And this is similar to throwing a cylinder. You're just going down in the middle to where you want the depth of the floor. Now with these, I usually have people keep the floors a little bit thicker so that we can come and do a follow-up step learning how to trim the foot. So we're just going to test the thickness of the floor, mark it with your finger. And so it's a little bit thicker than that quarter inch with the cylinders. This is more closer to about 1/2 inch. And then, instead of bringing the clay out like we do with a cylinder, we start our pinch pull right from here. So I have my right hand on the side, my left hand on the back. I'm going to push in with my thumb underneath, create this ring of clay, this undercut, and I don't keep pinching as I come up. I'm just going to keep my fingers right where they're at, and I am just going to follow this clay up to the top, like so. And once you get good at doing pinch pulls, the pinch pull really should only be your first pull. It helps shape the clay and get the clay moving in the right direction when you're working with a lot of clay really down low. And now we're going to make a little bit of an undercut with our fingers on the outside. And that gives you placement for where your fingers are going to go. So the fingers on the outside go underneath this ring of clay. Fingers on the inside are going to be right where that ring of clay pushes out. So on the inside, if whenever you start with your hands down in the center of the clay on the inside, and then you're going to come up and over, and then start your pull like this. And then we come up and out almost like a V. Anytime you're making a form, even if you want curves or anything special in that form, you do not put any of that in until the very end. So with this form, if you wanted a nice curve in your bowl, you don't put that curve in until the very end. You keep it as straight as possible so that it doesn't collapse. Anytime you put something in other than keeping it straight, it's a point where the pot can actually collapse. Okay, so now we're going to do one more pull. We're going to push in, make that undercut, and we're going to start in the center, come up and out like so. Take care of your rim. Water out the bottom. And then you're going to use your wooden rib, and we're going to use that to compress, clean up the walls, and shape the form. Do that one more time. Now with bowls, because we don't actually take that step of compressing like we do with compressing the floor like we do with cylinders, every time I stick my finger down into the pot, I don't start in the middle. I start about a ½ inch away from the middle and I run my finger down into the center, and then I kind of stay there for just a couple seconds, and then I come from the center back out to where I'm at the outside, and then we finish whatever we're doing, whether it's a shaping or a pull. Last thing you do, take your handy dandy wooden rib, make a nice little beveled cut at the bottom. Even though we are going to do a secondary step and come and trim these with tools later, it just makes it so that we can cut underneath this a lot nicer. The way that we pick up bowls is like this. I'm just going to set it aside.